probably the 3:30 a.m. club because I'm still in the Egypt time. So I'm still a little bit off balance in my sleep habits, and and I feel a little bit better than I did yesterday. As you guys know, I'm a little bit under the weather, but we're going to rock it out today. We're going to have a great day. And give me 1 second. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send out a text message to let everyone know that we're starting Money in the Morning. If you want to get a text notification when we start class and get an invitation that you can share with your family as well, just get on the text list, text the word morning, MORNING, to the number 87948. Text morning to 87948. Also, if you'd like a free copy of my training called How to Make Money Without Working, that's an introduction to making money selling stock options. You can text the word money to 87948. So those are two different lists. If you text money to 87948, I'll send the training to you. You can take a look at it. I guarantee you it will change your life. All right. So one thing I was thinking about is I think about a lot of stuff, and I was thinking about what's going on like right now with the stock market and how a lot of money's being made right now because the market's starting to recover. And just a little tidbit on the stock market. Most of you who've been following this space probably know this already, but in case you don't know, now you know. The stock market tends to operate with this peekaboo strategy. It'll sort of show you money, and then it'll disappear, and you'll think you're losing money, and then it'll pop back up again and go peekaboo, and it'll throw out a bunch of money again. And a lot of people who don't understand how the market operates, they can be deceived. They just like I remember reading somewhere. Did y'all know this that there's a reason that now again I'm an armchair psychologist. My wife is the one with real psychology training. You know, she's a licensed therapist. But I remember reading somewhere that children love the game of peekaboo. And do you know why they love peekaboo? It's going to freak you out. The reason kids love peekaboo is basically because they think it's real. Like they really think that when you hide your face, that you literally have disappeared from existence. And then when you go peekaboo, they're like, "Oh my God, you exist again. Where did you go? You went to a parallel universe." And then you hide again, and then they're like, "Oh my God, you disappeared. You died. Like, what happened?" And then you pop out again. You go peekaboo, and the baby's like, "Oh Lord!" Right? So little kids really love peekaboo because they think peekaboo's real. They really think that when you're not there, when they can't see you, that you don't exist anymore. And I find that really fascinating. And so that kind of reminds me of what happens when the stock market starts to go south. A lot of times, people, because we're not trained to have investor vision, because we're not trained to think like investors have a level of financial consciousness similar to what we talk about in this class. Investors don't just see what's in front of them. Investors see what's going to be in front of them. Investors don't just think about what is. Investors think about what could be. Right? They're not so distracted by what they see that they can't also visualize what they cannot see. And so, generally speaking, that to me is similar to the peekaboo thing. When the stock market goes south and everything's dark, that's when so many people just say, "Oh my God, this is terrible. It's the end of the world. We're all going to lose money. We're all going to die. What are we going to do? Let's sell our stock." It's just like every election. You know, every election they always tell you something to scare you. You know, that's a whole nother conversation about the about how the bourgeoisie class is designed to pretty much just sort of get you to commit to the status quo by scaring you about anything that's different. But we're not going to talk about that. But then also when it comes to investing, you'll see people that will see a headline that says the stock market crashed today, and they'll take that headline and they'll use that as instant confirmation, validation, and everything else that investing is for suckers, that stock market investing is for stupid people, and that you're going to lose all your money. And see, that's why I told you not to invest, because investing's bad. And let me just tell you, the media feeds into this too, because the media, just like the politicians, they operate on fear. The media knows. Did y'all know this, that they did studies and they found that the biggest, if you ever want to sell newspapers, don't put positive stuff in the headline. If you ever become a newspaper person or a journalist and you're trying to sell newspapers, do not put positive headlines in your newspaper if you expect to sell papers. If you're okay with not selling a few papers, then do positive things. So that's the right thing to do. But they literally have sayings like, "If it bleeds, it leads." So generally speaking, what they found in these studies is that if they scare the crap out of you at every available turn, then you're going to be more likely to buy these newspapers. And newspapers are driven by a capitalist model, which, by the way, is very unhealthy. I'm okay with capitalism sometimes. I'm not okay with capitalism all the time. I think capitalism should be left out of certain things that happen in our society, like healthcare and education, and even media. I don't think media should be driven by capitalism. And so this whole idea of scaring the crap out of people is how they sell their papers. So let me go full circle with that. So what the media will tend to do is when the stock market is going south and things are getting ugly, they're going to make sure you see that headline. That's going to be right in your face. You know, they're going to talk about it like crazy. What they almost never really cover completely is they never cover the recovery. So they play, you know, so a lot of people fall for the game of peekaboo. They see the losses and they're like, oh my God, it's over, you know, whatever, we're all gonna lose everything. And then they forget to tell you, oh yeah, the market went up another, 5% today. Oh yeah, the market, made billions of dollars back that it kind of lost yesterday. You thought the money was gone, but it wasn't really gone. You saw $10 billion in wealth, remove itself from the market, just like the game of peekaboo. Like, you covered the face, but it's like, no, the money's still here. Take them out, right? And the people who are able to not fall for the banana in the tailpipe are the ones who make the money. Do you understand? Do you get what I'm saying? Do you follow the analogy? Do you see? Did y'all get me when I was comparing it to peekaboo? Because like peekaboo's for babies. Babies fall for peekaboo. Babies are like, damn, wow, your face disappeared. I thought you were dead. And then you come back, you're like, I wasn't dead. I was really here the whole time. The baby's like, oh my God, and they'll fall for it every time. Well, guess what? When it comes to investing, America, I believe, designed a society where they want you to remain an economic baby. They want you to really think that because everything went south last week, that it's going to always be doom and gloom, that you should just sell everything you own, get out while you can. You're going to keep on losing money. And, oh my God, $1 trillion in wealth was erased from the stock market today. And you're like, oh my God, the money's gone. There's no wealth. No, the wealth didn't disappear. It's peekaboo. That when somebody tells you that Nvidia lost $20 billion in market value, Nvidia did not change. It's still the same damn company. Nothing changed. The products that they made on Tuesday are the same products that they're making on Wednesday. The management team they had last week is the same as the management team they have this week. The same customers they had last month are the customers they have this month. Nothing changed. The only thing that changed is the market value. The market value just kind of wiggled a little bit, and you thought somehow that meant it was the end of the earth and that everything was suddenly changing, that we're in this new regime of an economy. And let me just tell you about this. This is a little secret. A lot of you should understand this. There are so many people who make lots of money writing books telling you that the whole economic system is going to collapse because fear sells. They've always been people, just like there have always been people that will tell you the end of the world is next week. There are also people that will tell you that the end of the economic system is soon, that the dollar is going to lose its value, that everything's going to fall apart. And then when you give them a little bit of confirming information, like a recession or BRICS comes out. Oh my God, the dollar is going to disappear. It's going to be worthless tomorrow. Well, I mean, the end of the world is coming at some point. It's going to happen. It's not going to be here forever, but it ain't going to be next Tuesday. Okay, so if you are able to maintain consistency in your process, you're far more likely to get wealth than somebody who is jumping around, moving around to different things. In fact, my wife, who's a licensed therapist and she's a full professor of social work, I want to give this Black woman her props because y'all don't know how hard it is to become a full professor. Getting a PhD, only 1% of society has a PhD. I'm talking about a real PhD, not honorary, not, a summer program. Like she did 5 years. When she entered her program, there were 5 Black students. 4 of them did not make it. 4 of them got eliminated. These were top students. They kicked them all out. My wife was the one who survived. Then when she got her PhD, she went and got a faculty position. And then she made tenure, and then she became a full professor. So she's one of the best on earth at what she does. She's the only faculty member in the history of her university to ever win a Fulbright fellowship. That's why we went to Guyana back in 2017. And so she's really good at what she does. And so one thing that she helped me do, and this is really just kind of a recommendation, anybody who wants to accomplish things, get you a smart spouse. It really makes things easier. So she and I were brainstorming and we created that Black financial therapy department I told you guys about before. Some of you don't know about it, but literally it helped us. We sort of looked at Money and mindset, not in the way some people talk about. Like a lot of people, when they talk about money mindset, they talk about stuff like you got to go to church and you got to do jumping jacks and be, be positive and optimistic and believe in yourself. All that's important for sure, but we're talking about science-based research on what actually affects the chemicals inside your brain. What barriers, what obstacles psychologically exist that keep us from building wealth. And so I said, it'd be really cool if we were able to take all of these advanced psychology concepts and parlay them and connect them back to our economic choices and how this plays out in our spending. So what we found is that things like financial anxiety are huge. You live in fear. You're trained to live in fear. When you live in fear, you can't get rich. It's hard to get rich when you live in fear. Because scared people, scared money don't make money. Y'all know this. You've heard this before. People who are scared all the time don't make the best investment decisions because they're making decisions in a highly irrational framework. Okay. But irrationality isn't always bad, because sometimes irrationality, if you use it properly, it can breed things that we know very well, like faith and confidence. So sometimes faith and confidence can be very beneficial when you're an investor, because investors tend to look forward and up. They don't really look down and back. So if you're a person that has this undiagnosed, untreated trauma, for example, where that's constantly causing you to live in the past, constantly causing you to fear the worst, constantly causing you to believe everything's going to be a calamity, constantly causing you to destroy relationships, constantly causing you to close up when you should open up, then you're probably not going to typically do very well when it comes to economics, because economic growth requires some element of risk taking. Risk taking requires some element of kind of being willing to kind of put yourself out there a little bit and figure out how to process the failures and the disappointments. So how you respond when you make money is not as important as how you respond when you lose money. See, everybody can be confident when you make money, because, well, it's easy to be confident then because you have a lot to be confident about. But can you still be confident when you're not doing so well, or when the investment project that you just started didn't go well, or you start a business with a relative and y'all get into an argument or a disagreement? How do you handle that disagreement? These are where therapy tools come into play. And this is also where, if you don't get the therapy and get the healing, the trauma will jump in and the trauma responses will take over where your therapy should have. So the trauma response will be, oh, how dare you disrespect me? No, you didn't. You talking about me like that? Oh, I thought you was my friend. Da 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 da. Right, right. We don't know these things. Like, we don't know that the reason I'm really mad at you is because deep down I'm really mad because my daddy left me when I was 3, or something bad happened to me when I was 7, and it's caused me to feel isolated and alone. So I tend to put myself in these situations, right? You got to do the work. So all this is connected. I encourage you to do all the work, because that will help you to get the wealth. If you do the work, you'll get the wealth. If you don't do the work, you won't get the wealth. That's just how things tend to operate. Okay. All right. Now, reminder, tonight, you guys know we're doing a special fireside chat event in the Black Business School with Cody Ransom, who is the owner of the Black Wall Street Liquid Lounge in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But he's also an expert on Black Wall Street, the history of Greenwood, what really happened there. If that's of interest to you, which I think we should really study that, not because we want to study what white folks did to us. We should know about these things, but it's really also understanding how this place was built. The people behind the building of Black Wall Street. So anyway, Cody, he is one of our Black history teachers that actually teaches people in the Tulsa area, in the Greenwood area, and I was so flabbergasted by his presentation when I went to Tulsa and I did the tour, that I said, you got to come into Black Business School, because I can't believe that none of this was covered. It wasn't covered in Oprah's movie. It wasn't covered in even the movie that we did. Nobody really knows a lot of these things. So if you want to join us tonight, I'll send you an invitation. It's going to be tonight at 8 o'clock. I'll send you an invitation. Make sure you're on the text list. Text the word morning, MORNING, to the number 87948. If you text morning to 87948, I will text you the link later on today, and you can all join for free. It'll be a private Zoom, and you all can participate. Now, there's another thing I wanted to talk to you guys about that crossed my mind in terms of money and mindset. And since we do economic elevation training every morning, is I saw this crazy story where there was this couple that I don't know if y'all saw this. I put it on my Instagram. My Instagram is Dr. Boyce Money, and I have another Instagram, Dr. Boyce Finance. I have to have two because they take them down. When you talk about a lot of Black stuff, I guess they think that's racism or something, so they take it down. So I had 700,000 followers. Now I'm back to 100,000 because I had to start over again. So feel free to follow me on Instagram if you want to, Dr. Boyce Finance. But anyway, I put the story up, and what happened was there was, repeat the number. Yeah, the number is 87948. So somebody type the number in the chat for me, 87948. You can text morning to 87948 and you'll be invited to the event with Cody Ransom. So somebody type that in so others can see it. All right. So anyway, so there's this couple that it reminded me of something that I experienced one time. So I thought this would be interesting to bring up. So there's this couple that went to a casino. I don't know if y'all heard this, and they hit the jackpot. They made all this money, and everybody, when you pull the lever and it's all ding, 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 right, and they won like a big chunk of money. And unfortunately, when they won this money, there were people watching. A lot of people were watching, and there were two guys watching who followed this couple home. And when they got to their house, they ended up shooting them and robbing them. Now, I don't think they killed them, but I know that the husband and the wife both got shot, and they got robbed by these guys. They caught the guys. They're going to do their time in jail. Justice was served. But it made me think about something. It reminded me of a time where I might have told you all this story, but I was in Montana with my wife, and we went to this Indian reservation, and there was a casino there. And I told you all I like to play poker. Poker's a fun game for me. I don't like gambling, but poker's a great game of psychology, strategy, and math. And my skills as a mathematician and a finance professor lend themselves very well to poker, because financial psychology was actually my specialty when I wrote my dissertation. That and the stock market. So the psychology behind investing is something I'm really interested in. So anyway, so I sit at the poker table. And the thing about playing poker is poker's just like the stock market, where they're both all about information. Everything's about information. The stock market, literally, that's why people go to jail for insider trading. Like that's why Martha Stewart, was doing TV shows with Snoop Dogg, because she had information she wasn't supposed to have and she traded on that. And so they guard information. Illegal information is not allowed to be accessed. You can get in trouble for that. Well, poker is the same way. In poker, it's about sort of getting information from your opponents, giving off the wrong information, making sure that you hold information tight, that they don't figure things out. So a lot of times when I play poker, I don't talk. I don't even talk, because I want them to just look at me as this regular black dude sitting there, and they're not going to assume the black dude has a PhD in finance. They just don't assume that, right? And I just don't talk. I just smile. And I just sit there and laugh at people's jokes. And so anyway, as I'm sitting there and I'm playing poker, what happens is on a typical day, if everything's going kind of okay, eventually I just end up kicking everybody's ass, and they don't know what happened to them, because I'm good. I actually, I think I could play with like probably the best professionals. I've won tournaments with 800 or 900 people in them before, so I end up basically just cleaning these dudes up, right? And I didn't mean to, but I'm not gonna let you win. I mean, you gotta really. So I'm sitting there, right? I start off. I told my wife, I said, go, babe, go, you go do what you're going to do. I'm going to play a little poker. And I had $200. She said, okay, I'll be back in an hour. She came back in an hour. My $200 had turned into 1,000. So I'm sitting there and I got all these chips right in front of me. And all these white dudes are sitting at this table, and they're all like these country dudes with cowboy hats and with toothpicks in their mouths, looking at me like they just wanted to like take me out back and make sure that I was sleeping with the fishes. They want to make sure I didn't come home that day. Like those dudes were looking at me like they were going to beat me up. And I was like, so my wife comes back. She goes, hey, honey, it's time to go. And I was like, ooh, if I walk away from this table right now, somebody's gonna come get me. So I said, no, it's not right. I got to give them a chance to win their money back. I'm not gonna give it to you, but I'm gonna give you some more time. So I'm not gonna just eat and run. I said, you know what? You go and give me another hour and come back. So another hour goes by. And in that hour, the $1,000 turns into $2,000. So now I'm sitting there looking like King Tut. I got like stacks of chips like up this high. I can barely look over it. And these other dudes who I know were very pissed because they really needed the money. Me, honestly, a couple $1,000. I'm not bragging about money or nothing. I mean, but that's not really life changing. Really, it's like, oh, I had a good day today. Look at me. But at the same time, I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God, if and then I started thinking about where I was. And I said, man, I am at this casino in the middle of nowhere. It's dark outside. There's no police around. And I was like, shit, we got to have an exit plan. So my wife comes back again. And then I'm like, hey fellas, look, I'm sorry. My wife is here. I told her we go to dinner. I got to go. And one of the guys looks at me. He goes, do you always do what your wife tells you to do? Right. Kind of trying to pump me a little bit. Right. And I was like, nah, man, I don't let my wife tell me what to do. But then I was like, well, actually, I'm going to go eat with my wife. So anyway, I got up and I remember telling Alicia, I said, we better run to the car and we better make sure nobody's following us because my spidey senses went up. Like one of these guys is going to try to come get me. He's going to come try to get his money back. So what this made me think about, so I thought about this story as I was looking at this thing that happened with this couple that won all this money and they didn't know who was watching. And next thing you know, they end up getting shot and robbed. That did not happen to me and my wife that night. We made it back just fine. But this kind of thing can happen. And so one of the things that made me process is that when you have money, you have to kind of have an awareness. Money requires a certain degree of awareness. I've talked to you all about financial consciousness from one perspective, where I said that there's different levels. There's really 4 steps to getting wealth in this society. One is awareness, just knowing where the money is. Like a lot of people want money. They don't even know where the money's at. They don't know which parts of the economy generate the most money. They don't know which professions. They don't know that stock market investing is the greatest wealth builder in America. They don't know about real estate. They think getting a job at White Castle is going to get them where they want to get to financially, and it doesn't work. Or going to college and getting a 4-year degree is going to do. That's not where the wealth is. So the first step is consciousness in terms of knowing where the money is. The second step is planning. You have to have a plan on how you're going to get the money, right? And a lot of people don't have a plan. I always tell my girls, I say, look, I can tell you what man to pick, but I would encourage you, never pick a man that don't got a plan. If you ask him what his plan is for the next 10 years and he can't answer you in 60 seconds, that's not your guy, in my opinion, because success typically does not happen by accident. Most people are not successful at the level that they want. The people that are successful at the level that they want typically are people who made a plan. Success usually doesn't happen by accident because your pre-programmed destination that they put in your little psychological GPS from birth is one that is designed to take you right to the land of mediocrity, right to the land of credit card debt, right to the land of student loan debt, right to the land of corporate slavery, right to the land of job, just over broke, barely getting by, etc. That's what the programming is. So if you don't have a plan, then the money's not going to hit your hand. You have to have a plan. And that just gives you a chance to get the money. That doesn't mean you actually get it. Because then there's the third step. The third step is, and then again, most people miss this one, is once you make the plan, you have to execute the plan. Execution is something that a lot of people can't do because we operate in these little bursts. We have this motivation for a while, and then you get distracted, then you go do something else, then you get motivated again, and then you do something else. And we live off these, because we are traumatized people and people like to trigger our trauma. We have all these motivational speakers. You can do it. You're the greatest. Praise Jesus. You gonna get it. God wants you to be wealthy. God wants you to have money. The Lord wants you to be saved. Jesus wants you to. They do all that, and then you're like, yeah, woo, woo, woo. But then that's exhausting. That's exhausting as shit. Like that's gonna wear you out. You're gonna be sweating and tired, and you're gonna go take a nap after all that. And that's only gonna last you for about a day, maybe a week. But it's not motivation that makes you successful. It's discipline. Discipline is the ability to really keep doing the same thing over and over and over again for a very long period of time, even when you don't feel like it. Discipline, discipline, discipline. Motivation, that's really to help deal with the fact that a lot of us just don't have enough self-esteem from the jump. And I think that that's important. I think there's a place for motivation. Nothing wrong with motivation, but think about it. Look at how many motivational speakers we have in our community and who consistently speak to people whose lives haven't moved forward at all, because they're giving you a feel-good moment, and the feel-good moment must be followed with a plan of action and consistent execution that involves some degree of discipline. You're not always going to feel it. When I get up in the morning, I told y'all, every morning my goal is to be in the 5 a.m. club, and I never am. I'm usually in the 6:30 a.m. club or the 7 a.m. club, but every day I literally have to peel myself out of bed to go to that gym, and sometimes it don't feel like I should be there. I don't feel like Rocky Balboa. I don't feel motivated. But it's the discipline you're trying to get to, okay? So that's working the plan. That's the execution. Getting my doctorate literally required me to be in school all through my 20s when all my friends were partying and having fun and getting the jobs and buying houses and all that. And I literally would sit there every day and study 7 or 8 hours a day consistently for many, many years. It was really, really hard to do. The fourth part to building wealth, the fourth step is as you've done, and so you figured out where the money is, you made a plan, You executed the plan. So now you're getting rich. Now you're accumulating something. Just like walking, if I start walking to California, every step I take, I'm accumulating mileage, right? So you're starting that accumulation process. Now you're starting to get rich. Now you're starting to see the results of your labor. Now you're starting to see the fruits of your actions, right? And so now you get some wealth. And the fourth stage is to protect your wealth. The fourth thing to do is you have to protect your wealth. This story with this couple really reminded me of step four, protecting wealth. See, protecting wealth is not just about things like life insurance and all that. You should definitely do those things. Um, Protecting wealth even goes deeper than things like portfolio diversification and things like that, because we've talked about that. I did that whole training on storm-proof investing while I was explaining how to protect your wealth in case there's an economic downturn. Um, Protecting wealth pretty much means anything and everything that you have to do in order to manage and to assess the risks that lay around you. The thing about money that's interesting that I noticed is that money doesn't just change what your options are, and a little, it sometimes it can even affect who you become to some extent, but it also affects how others see you. Do you understand? So money changes that. Like a rich person can't navigate the world the same way a poor person can all the time, because unfortunately, if you have too much money, people might see you differently. Someone's going to look at you and say, I'm going to rob you, or I'm going to scam you, or I'm going to get money from you. Or the lawyers say, oh, I'm going to sue him. When lawyers file lawsuits, any lawyers in the room, anybody know lawyers? When lawyers file lawsuits, if anybody with money is connected to the lawsuit, they'll put the person in the lawsuit just to see if they can get some of that money. But if you broke, they're not going to put you in the lawsuit. Ain't nobody suing a broke person. Hey, no, nobody's barking up that tree because they know that there's nothing in it. But if they know that there's money there, they'll put you in the lawsuit just because you have money. Will Smith said he has 8 lawyers on retainer just because he gets sued all the time for nothing, for stuff he didn't even do. He looked at somebody funny, or somebody makes up a story, or some lady says he slept with her or whatever. And so basically, in this story, that's kind of what I saw, is that their awareness. And see, this is the thing. Assessing risk requires a certain degree of awareness, a certain degree of economic consciousness to say, okay, I'm not the same person. The world is not going to see me the same way I see myself. When I was broke, and I was the broke, struggling grad student who drove a car that would only work about 80% of the time, women saw me differently than when they saw me when I was a finance professor making 6 figures driving a luxury vehicle. I didn't know this at the time. And then maybe they saw me differently when I became whatever Dr. Boyce Watkins was when he was a single man. And I didn't understand any of that. I told you I studied that because I was really intrigued by that, because I was like, I'm still the same guy, but the world is treating me different. And so what I would say to you is that in this particular context, what popped out to me is that I think that this couple unfortunately got hit by the fact that that when you're doing well, everybody around you is not always happy for you. And a lot of times, in some cases, you may even find that there are people in your life that cannot go with you to the next level. Like yesterday, we talked about how Rocky Balboa's mother refused to go to the Oscars because he couldn't bring the hairdresser with him, or something. And it was just something goofy. But it's like sometimes if you run a company, for example, and you go from being a company that makes 100,000 a year to being a company that makes a couple $1 million a year, you may not always be able to have the same team that you had when you were a smaller business. People talk about that. It's very heartbreaking. It's very difficult to deal with. And then on top of that, in this particular case, these people won this money. They were happy for themselves. They felt like everybody was happy for them, and they didn't realize that money will attract predators as well. And so, to some extent, part of economic awareness isn't just about being aware of where the money is and how to get it. Economic awareness might also include knowing how the world views you as you climb the economic ladder, as you become the wealthy person, or as you become known for making all this money. One thing I always say is I always, tell people, I say, when I see guys, like especially young guys that get a little bit of money, athletes, rappers, or whatever, I say, why would you go around telling everybody how much money you have? You understand what that's going to bring to you, how many headaches that's going to bring to you, how many problems you're going to get, how much jealousy that's going to foster. It's going to, I went to college with the guy Antoine Walker, who made $100 million. He's famous for making $100 million and throwing it all in the garbage. And he went to Chicago and he got robbed. He went right into the hood with with $300,000 or $400,000 worth of jewels in his car, and of course you're going to get robbed. You're literally taking a fiesta of food with you to a community that is starving. So somebody's going to say, I'm not going to ask you for the money. I'm just going to take it from you. And so it seems to me that an awareness would have meant, look, if I'm going into certain spaces, I have to have security. I believe that Tupac Shakur, if he had thought differently about understanding how people perceived him versus how he saw himself, I think Tupac would still be alive. I think it was a lack of awareness that caused him to consistently put himself in situations where bad things could happen to him. Whereas, when you're the most famous rapper on earth, yeah, you kind of need a little bit of security. You need something that's going to keep you safe, even though you don't want to be disconnected from the people, but you kind of have to. So ultimately, what I would say to you is that as you climb the economic ladder, which a lot of you will, as you build your wealth, which I know a lot of you are going to do, I encourage you to just have that awareness that number one, if you make money, or if you win money, or something big happens to you, at some point something good's going to happen. You're going to have money. I wouldn't tell anybody. I would literally keep it to myself. Be humble about it. Be very quiet about it. If people do find out, just kind of know this is going to kind of change things a little bit. You may not change, and your goal may be, look, we're going to be the same old people no matter what. But sometimes that's not going to work. It just may not work. And I can just tell you, even in my experience, like, I can't tell you how many people I've had call me and ask to borrow money in the last month alone. It happens all the time, and I do help a lot of people. I just want to. I feel like that's my responsibility, especially if it's somebody that I can easily help. But the problem though is that it can get very overwhelming, and when you get to the point where you finally say no, then it doesn't matter how many good deeds you did in the past. It's the one time you said no that defined you. Like, oh, you're an asshole because you don't care about so and so, but you might have helped 20 other people before. When I was in Egypt, has anybody been to Egypt and been to like the pyramids and all that, and seen how many people, just how heavy the hustle game is in terms of the people trying to sell you stuff? And it's amazing. It's something unlike anything you'll ever see anywhere else. And I have a lot of respect for it, actually, because I just think that they're excellent salespeople and they don't give up. It's sad. It's kind of crazy because I remember thinking, man, this is nuts. There's this 10-year-old kid who is out in 107-degree heat, and he's trying to get me to give him $5. And I was thinking, I know people who won't even go to work in the air condition. I know people who won't even get out of bed and go to a good job making good money, just lazy as hell. I mean, if you go to other countries and you really see that level of poverty, it'll remind you how blessed you are in America. I know that America ain't right. I know that America's got problems. I know we got racism, but it kind of makes you mad. It's like, wait, I got cousin Pookie who won't even go to a $30 an hour job, but this little kid is sitting in 107-degree heat just trying to get something to eat. So anyway, I remember that. So one of the things that I did was they kept telling us, don't talk to anybody, don't even engage, don't even give them eye contact, because then they're going to be on you. And of course, I broke the rule because I said, look, I'm not going to go. I can't do that. These are human beings. I'm not going to act like they're not there. And I think I bought something from somebody for like $5 or $10. And when I tell you, I got swarmed like nobody's business. It was unbelievable. Like, even the guy that I bought the stuff from, I thought that if I buy something from you, then we're done. It's over. I'm walking away. But no, he's like, oh, I got a live one. I got a guy who's willing to spend money. So that made him harass me even more. And then all his friends started harassing me. So I had all these people around me. And so I was like, oh, all right, well, let's just roll with it. So I had some money in my pocket. I was like, here, I'll buy this. I just wanted to do it, because I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. And I remember how Muhammad Ali used to operate. He's a second cousin of mine by marriage, actually. His cousin married my aunt. Yeah, that's it. His cousin married my aunt, but that's beside the point. But I kind of like that spirit. I like that energy of just saying, that the people matter, and I like connecting with the people. So I'm just giving money out, and of course the tour guides are pissed at me. They're so mad at me, like, why are you doing this? And eventually I got done. I was like, I don't have any more money. I'm not buying anything else. Leave me alone. I'm done. No, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you. And it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. And then at some point, it just, my trigger popped up, where I just turned around and I said, leave me alone. Right. And the tour guide was like, so suddenly the police come because they're thinking that it's like about to go down. And because it was one particular guy, and I yelled in his face and I said, I told you, leave me alone. You think I'm a sucker because I gave you some money? Leave me alone. And I yelled at him, right? And I didn't mean to, but something just came out. And so they whisked me away, and the guy was so mad, and he goes, and he had given me all this crap. He like put this stuff in my pocket because he wanted us to be friends, so I would buy stuff from him. And he's like, "Give me back my cloth." I was like, "Take your stupid cloth." He's like, "Give me back my rock." And I was like, "Take your rock. I didn't want your damn rock anyway." And I remember. So here's the thing, right? So in that situation, couple things I noticed is number one, when I showed I was willing to spend money, that changed how I was perceived, right? I wasn't perceived as just a member of the crowd. I was perceived as the guy who's going to spend money. So that changed their behavior toward me. Same thing is true in your life. When you are a person that either has money or shows that you're willing to spend or invest it, that's going to draw people. If you become a millionaire and you make a donation, well, all the charities are going to start hitting you up on the phone, right? And so that's just life. It just comes to the territory. I'm okay with that part. But then the second part was, I remember thinking to myself, I said, gosh, I didn't like the fact that I had to yell at this guy, and I didn't want to be an asshole, but I was tired of it. I was like, dude, like, who do you think I am? Like, and and it was kind of one of these things that where it was sort of like I didn't like the version of myself that yelled at this man. I didn't like that part. And I kind of feel like that unfortunately became kind of the defining moment where I'm sitting there with all these tourists and I yell at this guy, and I didn't want that to be the end of our interaction. I don't regret giving the money. And so what I started doing, just as a little tip, if you go to places like that, what you do, what I started doing was I still was giving money. I said no, I'm gonna give all my money away like to somebody. So I would find a little kid and I would say, here, walk with me to the bus. They would walk to the bus. I would hand them money real quick and get on the bus. And that way I was gone. They didn't even have time to say thank you or do you want to buy something else, or other people didn't have time to swarm me. So that's a good way to kind of do, so I don't believe in just sort of ignoring people that are struggling. I think that if you can help, I think that you should. But that experience reminds me a lot of how what you do with your money, or how much money you have, or how much information others have about what you have, can really affect how people respond to you and how people perceive you, and you may not even know it. I know a woman who's doing really well. She makes about $250,000 a year, and she has this great big house, and she's very humble. She didn't know that people are just amazed when they walk into her house, because it's this big old mansion, and she lives by herself, and I think she was in her late 40s at the time, and she got this boyfriend, and this boyfriend. Apparently, she was going through her credit card bills, and she saw where the boyfriend had used the credit card to buy shoes, and the shoes were not her size. So you know what was going on with that. And so she finds out that she has this guy. My friend calls them hobosexuals. Like a hobosexual is basically a guy who sleeps with wealthy women in order to get their money, right? So they know what they know what you want to hear. They whisper sweet nothings in your ear and get you to fall in love, and then they're coming to get your money. And apparently there's like the rise of the hobosexual. Now I'm old school. I believe that it's the missing fathers that's causing these calamities that are happening in our community. I think that we need more stable households, because I don't respect any of that. But really, I remember talking to her about that, and I said, yeah, you may not think of yourself as anything special. You may think of yourself as just a regular person, but other people may look at you and look at what you drive and look at how much money you have, and they're going to say, oh, she's rich. So you're going to probably have to vet people a little bit more before you let them in your space. Definitely vet them before you let them in your house, or let them in your bed. And so, and then some cases, though, some people, because they don't think about these things, you can end up sleeping with the enemy. And the same thing happens on the male side as well. I remember hearing when Lawrence Taylor, anybody remember when Lawrence Taylor, the football player, got caught with some underage prostitute or something, and she was like 16 years old, and Gloria Allred was holding a press conference with the little girl, and it was really bad. And I used to write for AOL Black Voices back when it was actually a great website and platform. It was one of the biggest Black platforms in the country at the time, until Ariana Huffington came along and kind of just destroyed it. But anyway, at that time, I wrote an article about it, and I got this email, a long email with like a lot of broken English, and it was all caps. But it was interesting. It was like, I know these girls be scamming, it was kind of like that, right? So, and there was a phone number, and I was so curious. So I called this phone number, And it was like, I want to just hear, I want to know what's real. I like to know what's really going on. I don't want to just hear the headline. I want to hear what's really going on. So basically, I was on this phone call and I felt like I got taken down this crazy journey of this whole underworld that I didn't even know about. So I talked to this lady, and her profession was that she said I said, so what do you do? She said, I work for a butt doctor. I said, what? She said, a butt doctor, a Brazilian butt doctor. He comes up and he injects whatever that crap is. They inject in the strippers' booties to make them big. And he comes up and all the strippers come to him to get the injections, right? So she tells me this whole story about one of the girls that was involved in this particular case. And she said that the three of them, she said, I know them. And she said that that what they would do is they lure wealthy men. They study rappers and athletes, and they find out which rappers and which athletes they like to have the cheap, easy sex, because they know that these men make themselves very vulnerable, because men, we're macho and strong. We think that nobody can hurt us. So what they'll do is they'll figure out what the men like and what they like to talk about and everything else. And then they will kind of lure them in because they're all very pretty. And what they would do is that they would meet the man. And even if, so a lot of the men were careful. They'd say, okay, are you over 18? Let me see your ID. And they all had fake IDs. So that didn't even matter. And then they would go back to the room, or the oldest would go back to the room with the guy. And when they took him to the room, they would put a date rape drug in his drink. Like, we talk about men using date rape drugs on women, but nobody talks about the amount of times that the drugs are used by women on men. Cardi B actually revealed all that. She said that's how they used to make money. And for some reason, people didn't prosecute her like they would have if she were a man saying these things. But yeah, this is a reality, right? And so what would happen is, as the man was asleep, the 15-year-old that was part of the group would get in the bed and they would take pictures of the guy in the bed with the 15-year-old, and they would blackmail him with the pictures. And they basically say, you have to give us $10,000 or we're going to send the pictures to your team. We're going to send them to your spouse. We're also going to send them to the press if you don't pay us. So what she claimed was that most of the athletes would just pay, because it's just, I mean, for them it's $10,000, right? It's not like they were high level scammers. They were just trying to get $10,000 because their dream, I kid you not, she said their dream was they wanted to move to California and become adult film stars. I kid you not, like that was their dream. This is sad. Like, we got to save our children because this is crazy. So anyway, so what she claimed was, she said Lawrence Taylor was one of the guys who said, I'm not going to pay you. And then suddenly that's what turned it into the national, the press conference and the lawsuit and everything else. And so anyway, my point in all that, when I heard that story was, and it sounded very credible. I'm gonna be honest with you, because I asked a lot of questions. I listened to her for 2 hours talk, and she just sounded like she just had to get this off her chest, because she said she knew one of them, and actually she said that the reason she knew one of the girls was because she thought she was like this sweet little innocent girl that she was going to mentor, and next thing you know, this girl was trying to sleep with her husband. That's what she said, right? So it was kind of one of those crazy things, right? We're all grown, so I hope it's okay if I share the story, because it is an economic story, and it's an economic story because if you have wealth and you don't have awareness to go with that wealth, you're not aware of your surroundings, you're not aware of how people see you, you're not aware of what type of people you're going to attract, then at some point you're going to lose your wealth. Because that fourth point I made earlier about protecting your wealth, it goes into pretty much anything and everything that could make you financially vulnerable. Anything that, even things like marriage and divorce. If you're wealthy and you marry a person who has nothing, and you tie that knot, you're creating a relationship that has a significant economic imbalance. And so if that relationship ends, then you're going to be expected to pay up, pretty much, because you're the one that has the most money. It used to be the men that did that, but now women have a lot of money too. Women are doing really well. And so you're starting to hear about a lot of female celebrities that get divorced. And I think Beyonce's mother just had to give her ex-husband a bunch of money, right? So it's not just men, it's not just women. It's really whoever the stronger economic party is. So one of the solutions that some people might consider is the idea of being equally yoked financially. For example, when my wife and I got together, the internet makes up rumors about your relationships. I didn't know people did all that, but that was on me. I told everybody about it because I believe in black love, and I was very proud to love a black woman. I think that this is important for our community. So I don't have any regrets, but I didn't know that people would just make things up and run with whatever they make up in their head. So the one of the myths that was made up was that she was marrying me because I had all this money. And what people didn't know is that my wife had her own money, and her having her own money played a part in terms of how we shaped our relationship romantically, but also how we shaped it economically and in terms of business. Whether you know it or not, marriage is a contract. In fact, it has more in common with a business contract than it does with an emotional connection. The emotional part is very important. Don't get me wrong. You should love somebody when you marry them and all that. But love does not really carry you through a 20, 30-year marathon. There's some functional, practical aspects of that partnership that have to be considered. So one of the things that we did do is we did sign a prenup because it was like, yeah, I got stuff, you got stuff. I don't want your stuff. You don't want mine. I'm not going to try to take what I'm not taking from you. You're not taking from me. So let's just get this on paper so we can get to the business of actually loving each other without the money getting in the way. So as you build your wealth, as you build your family wealth, just understand like there's a reason why wealthy families are very careful about who they want their children to marry. They don't just say, "Well, go find somebody who's cute or some girl with a nice booty or some man who's tall and handsome and marry him and put all of our wealth on the line." They don't do that. They're like, "No, no, no, no. What family do they come from? What are we marrying into?" And so other cultures that preserve wealth, especially wealthy sides of every culture, they think very carefully about who you're blending with. Even that big, anybody seen that really big obese guy in India who had that big wedding that was like $600 million? I think Ambani, I think that's his name. Anybody seen that? It's kind of crazy. The wedding's been going on for like 6 months, and he literally had like Rihanna perform. Then he had Justin Bieber. Then he had I don't know if Beyonce performed, but like people at that level. And they were giving him these crazy gifts. Like I think Mark Zuckerberg gave him like a $20 million car. Bill Gates gave him a $30 million yacht. It was nuts. It was like, what the hell is going on here? This is ridiculous. And I hate it actually because India has a lot of starving people, and it's just ridiculous that you're flaunting all this wealth in front of people that are starving to death. I think that's literally almost demonically, horrifically bad because you can still be rich and help people eat. Like I just don't, and you could be rich without being audacious, right? I don't know what the audacity comes from. I don't understand the psychology behind that, to be honest with you. Like why you have to show everybody how much money you're wasting in a country where people are gonna die today because they don't have enough food. I just think it's terrible, to be honest with you. That's the side of capitalism I don't enjoy. But anyway, Ambani, I think his wife. I thought it was like some big fat guy marrying like a really pretty lady who wants to be married with him to him for the money, but apparently she comes from a wealthy family too. So that now I really don't know why. Maybe he's really funny or something. But anyway, it's like so their marriage. It wasn't. I don't think it was arranged, but I think that the whole family was kind of involved in making the decision. It wasn't just like, oh yeah, just bring home whatever the cat drags in, and I want you to marry this person because you like them or you think that they're cute. So I want you to really just process that as well. That people that tend to have a lot of wealth, they kind of have almost like a little bit of a military mindset where they understand what they're protecting. Because throughout the world, generally speaking, it's very hard for any individual or any group of people to have a significant amount of wealth without a tremendous capacity for the protection of that wealth. Like seriously, let me say it again. It's almost impossible for a society to be free and wealthy without having some plan for the protection of that wealth. So if you want to understand why black wealth is like drop, doop, 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 drop, 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 you got to then turn around and say, what are you doing to protect your wealth? When you get money, like what effort is being put into protecting that money? Or because all what I see is I see people, they get money. It's like, I'm gonna go make it rain at the club now. I'm gonna go spend, spend, spend. I'm gonna go buy me a bunch of luxury items. I'm gonna give my money back to the same Europeans who stole it in the first place. I don't see a lot of energy when it comes to wealth protection and wealth preservation. Well, why is that? Well, because it's boring. It's not interesting. It's not lit. It's not cool. It's not cool to talk about defensive investing strategies. So what you'll see is you'll see people come into a whole lot of money, and they don't understand how the world sees them. They don't understand that things have changed, and they don't understand that they have more money than a corporation does, than most corporations do. And instead of seeing their money as capital, which is meant to be preserved and protected, they see their money. They think like a consumer. So they see, oh my God, I've got $100 million in my bank account. I need to go spend it all. And I'm gonna spend like crazy because it's impossible to spend all this money. So, or I've got 3 million or 2 million or 5 million. I got to spend it, because what else is there to do with money other than spend it? And this is where education at an early age really starts. If you educate kids at an early age that wealth is to be preserved and protected, that wealthy people are more conservative than they are sort of just, ridiculous with their money, then they'll kind of understand that when you get that opportunity, when God blesses you with that chance to have a little something, like, okay, this is my chance. This is my opportunity. I'm not going to blow this, because if I blow it, I'm not just blowing it for me. I'm blowing it for all the people who are going to depend on me. When Antoine Walker went to the NBA and made $110 million and spent every penny of that money, he didn't just spend his own money. He spent his kids' money. He spent his grandkids' money. He spent his great grandkids' money. So unfortunately, it's easy to say, well, you financially abused your children. You got your grandkids sold into slavery now, because they're not going to be 6'8", 240 pounds. They're not going to have a chance to go play for the Boston Celtics and be a top 10 draft pick. So you were the family representative. You were driving the bus, and you drove the bus straight off a cliff. That's sad to me. I'm not angry at him for doing that, because I just know that he probably did that because nobody told him any different. And nobody said, hey, look, man, this is an opportunity, brother. You got to hold on to this. We got to have a serious conversation. You're going to have to grow up a little quicker. We're going to have to be really careful right now, because this is our opportunity. This is our big economic wormhole. This is the chance to get everybody out the hood if you have the right mindset. So really, I want you to think about that and to understand this too. Here's another little point about, and since we're talking about Antoine Walker, and I went to college with him, so I think that's why he's at the front of mind. He didn't just waste $110 million. Antoine Walker wasted about $2 or $3 billion. Do you understand? He didn't just lose 110 million. He lost about two billion. If you know anything about compound interest, you'll know that you'll know how much money he would have if he'd invested 30 or 40% of that money throughout his entire career. Even in, something boring, S&P 500 index funds. Like if you understand compound interest, you know how much wealth this man would have had by the time he died, that he would have been a billionaire like LeBron James is. So he didn't just waste $110 million. See, what you got to understand is that money isn't just capital that's meant to be preserved. Money is a freaking seed. Money is a seed. So you don't measure the weight of a tree by the weight of the seed. A sycamore tree has a seed that probably weighs a few ounces, but you let that sucker grow, you plant it properly, you nurture it, you protect it, you put water on it. That sycamore tree weighs more than a freaking house. That redwood tree starts off as a seed, but it grows into something that's so massive that they can barely cut the freaking things down. So what I want you to really understand, in fact, a few seeds can grow a whole forest full of gigantic redwood trees if somebody knows what the hell they're doing. So unfortunately, what happens sometimes in America is that the money is put in the hands of people that are not trained to grow. They're not trained to grow wealth. They don't know anything. They know how to dribble basketballs. They know how to rap, but they're not trained on the basics of economics, where even very basic investing would have grown that wealth into at least $1 billion. And then you add a little bit more thought onto that, then you can create 50,000 jobs, right? So remember that it's almost like when somebody in that position, if you ever want to know why I get frustrated, my face turns red and I just start barking and yelling and screaming at the screen when I see an athlete or entertainer waste their wealth, it's because not everybody sees what I see. Like it's almost like if a 20-year-old mother is about to give birth and something happens and the baby dies, I don't just see the death of a baby. I see all the children that baby was going to have. I see all the grandkids that we're going to have. I see all that would have grown out of that one little seed. That's what I see. I don't just see a little tiny fetus. I see generational legacies. Have you ever seen that there was one video I saw where they pointed out like two great grandparents, and they were like, somebody says, yeah, these are my grandparents. They fell in love in 1952, and then they had 12 kids, and then their 12 kids had kids, and each time all the kids and the grandkids will pile up, and by the time they got done, they got to the great grandkids. There was like 100 people in this picture. And it all came from one seed, one little drop of love that happened between this man and this woman in 1952. This one little thing that if they pivoted one way or the other, if one little bad thing had happened, all 100 of those people would be wiped out like a genocide. They would all be gone. So really money grows the same exact way. Small amounts of money grow into large amounts of money. Small businesses become empires. Tiny situations become extraordinarily massive situations. And what happens is that when we're not training our kids on wealth economics, wealth preservation, the growing of wealth, how money works and all that, you're totally killing off just an insane amount of possibility that would have existed had somebody sat down and just took the time to teach kids about what to do when God blesses you, what to do with the opportunity when it comes into your life. That's what I see. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about the protection of wealth and the preservation of wealth and the growing of wealth. We are blessed. We get so many opportunities in this society. You have no idea. I mean, maybe the trip to Egypt got me thinking about this. You go there and there's places where people have no opportunities at all. Even if you are hardworking and you do what you're supposed to do, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. We've got opportunities here. And so what has to happen is we got to elevate our thinking so that we know how to get the most out of those opportunities. So many of our kids that could become captains of industry and build billion-dollar companies, they just become like employees for white people because that's all they were ever taught. So part of your consciousness is also partly driven by your exposure. It's driven by the expectations people have for you. So if I have high expectations and I'm exposed to a lot of things, then I'm going to live my life and make my decisions at a higher standard than I am if I'm exposed to nothing and people don't expect anything from me. So in many cases, I think that our children are harmed by the curse of low expectations. You send them to that school with that nice lady from the suburbs who says, oh, well, he's black. Of course he can't accomplish anything because he's black. He's probably just going to get shot by the police on his way home. So if he doesn't get shot by the police, then that's a success. And next thing you know, that little boy grows up and he's not even a fraction of the man that he could have been. And I think this happens all the time. And this is one of the greatest crimes against humanity that is happening to us every single day. And it's a crime that will only stop when we stop it. That's it. It's not going to stop when they stop doing it. It's going to stop when we stop allowing it and when we stop asking for it. We ask for this. We want this. We enjoy this because I don't think that we understand how great we're supposed to be and how great our outcomes are supposed to be. We kind of accept whatever crap the world gives us. And I'm tired of that. I don't believe in any of that. So that's it. I'm done for today. We've been talking for an hour flat. So let me head on out of here and say it was great talking to you today. If you want to join us for Money in the Morning, our economic elevation training, we do this 7 days a week, every single day. If you want to join the private Zoom, you can get an invitation. Pull out your phone, text the word morning, MORNING, to 87948. Text morning to the number 87948. Somebody put that in there. Also, I do have a training called How to Make Money Without Working. It's an introduction to stock options and how to sell stock options to generate money. It works really well. A lot of you are already doing it and you love it. So feel free to take a look at that. You can text the word money to 87948 if you'd like to receive that. So there's different text lists. It all goes to the number 87948. So if you're interested in stock options and you want to learn more about it, just text the word money to 87948. And I guarantee you, I'll give you a strategy that can help you make money by Tuesday, if that's what you want to do. All right. So anyway, and one more thing. Tonight at 8 p.m., Cody Ransom from the Black Wall Street Liquid Lounge is going to come in and give us the real history of Black Wall Street, the characters behind it, who built it, how they built it, what happened afterward, the stories that the media doesn't tell. And because we believe deeply that we should be educating our own people. So we don't look to society to give us Black history. We look to our people to give us Black history. And Cody's one of the best. So if you'd like to join us tonight for free, just make sure you're on the text list and I'll text you guys the link this afternoon and you guys can join us tonight at 8 p.m. So God bless you. Have a great day. Thank you so much for hanging out and I will see you soon. Take care now. Bye-bye.